Puri Krishnamohan, endocrinologist, Karnool. And very good evening, my dear friends and my dear professional fellow colleagues. And today we are going to talk about the hypoglycemia and the glycemic variability, the lows and the swings. So before I start my session, I request all the participants to type your questions or queries in the chat box so that we will take the question and answer session at the end of the second session. So this is my financial disclosure, and we start with a poll question. Then how do we measure the glycemic variability? The first one is the amplitude of glycemic excursions, that is the standard deviation and the coefficient of variation. And second answer is time spent out of range, and third answer is both 1 and 2. I think all of you are well aware that the answer is both 1 and 2, because glycemic variability depends on the amplitude of the glycemic excursions as well as the time spent out of the range. So that is why the TIR is very important. Time in the range is very important. And today's agenda is divided into the part 1, understanding the hypoglycemia and the glycemic variability, that is called GV. And the second part will be hypoglycemia and the GV, that is glycemic variability, the association. Then third and last part will be hypoglycemia and the glycemic variability and the implications. Let us start with the understanding hypoglycemia and glycemic variability. And this is the bar diagram which shows the patient's experience frequent hypoglycemic events, and some of which are severe. And the left hand side you can see a bar diagram, and the right hand side you can see a bar diagram. And the left hand side bar diagram shows the light blue one is given in that indicates the type 1 diabetes mellitus, and the dark blue indicates type 2 diabetes mellitus. And the subjects were 112 in type 2 diabetes, type 1 DM, and the 2808 in the T2 DM group. And the left hand side is hypoglycemia type 4 weeks before the baseline, and the right hand side indicates the hypoglycemia type 6 months before baseline. So when you see this, the T1 DM and the T2 DM, it is the any event, the non-severe, and they have divided into the 3 categories, that is any hypoglycemic event, and non-severe and nocturnal. Whereas in type 1 it is seen as like 66.3% of the hypoglycemic incidence, whereas the type 2 is 46.6. Whereas the non-severe type is 59.8 in the T1 DM and 44.9 in the T2 DM, and the nocturnal it is 38 in the T1 DM and 14.3 in the T2 DM. See, obviously the hypoglycemia in T2 DM is little bit much less when compared to that of hypoglycemia in T1 DM, because T1 DM patients, all T1 DM are on insulin either 2 times or 3 times or 4 times or 5 times, maybe multiple regimes, like starting from biphasic premix to basal bolus. So incidence will be little bit low in T2DM because most of the patients are on OADs, plus added on to that will be an insulin. So coming to the right hand side, the hypoglycemia type 6 months before baseline. So same as like the light blue is T1 DM and the dark blue is T2 DM. And when we see this is the severe, that is the incidence is, so far we have seen this NER, non-severe and nocturnal. Now we come to this particular aspect, the severe hypoglycemia, that is the L3, that is level 3 hypoglycemia or stage 3 hypoglycemia or severe hypoglycemia, that is In T1DM it is 24.8%, whereas in T2DM it is 20.6. And hospital admission, most of the times the severe hypoglycemia needs hospital admission, needs parenteral glucose infusion. So that is the incidence is like 14.7% in T1DM and then the 7.1% in T2DM of the this thing patient population require hospital admission with this particular severe hypoglycemia. And this roughly represents the percentage of patients with hypoglycemia in India. See, no, it's not moving. Yeah. Thank you so much, and sorry for the technical glitch. And this slide is very important. This shows the levels of hypoglycemia actually. The suspected hypoglycemia are routine blood glucose measurement. And if the patient is able to self-treat, that is treat himself, if it is yes, it is SMBG measurement is again categorized to level 1. Level 1 is like less than 70 milligram per deciliter and above or around 54 milligram per deciliter is labeled as level 1 hypoglycemia or stage 1 hypoglycemia or mild hypoglycemia, where the patient is able to assist himself, treat himself by taking glucose, that is usually the standard of care says it is 15 into 15 into 15, that is 15 grams of glucose at that particular time, and you have to wait for 15 minutes, and again if it is the patient is not yet recovered, you have to give again the 15 grams of glucose, that is anhydrous glucose dissolved in the water. So that is the principle of 15 into 15 into 15. And the second is the patient is able to self-treat. The level is, if it is less than 54 milligram per deciliter, it is called level 2, that is stage 2 or the moderate hypoglycemia. And the threshold to neuroendocrine responses is there in the level 1. And this is the level 2 is threshold at which the neuroglycopenic symptoms begin to occur. This is very important to note. And the neuroendocrine responses are still there in level 1, and the neuroglycopenic symptoms begin to occur. But in level 3, we find this neuroglycopenia, which is the severe form of this thing. The patient gets into the coma, and the patient is not able to self-treat. So far we have discussed, if it is yes, we need to do this, and if it is no, that is straight away to level 3, that is severe hypoglycemia or stage 3 hypoglycemia, where there is altered mental or physical functioning and requiring external assistance in the form of, mostly in the form of this parenteral glucose, to start with the 25% glucose and to maintain with the 5% or 10% glucose. And yeah, you can see now the nocturnal hypoglycemia is actually from 12 o'clock to like 5 o'clock or the 6 o'clock in the morning. That is, it starts from 12 in the middle of the night and until the end of the 6th hour, that is until 6 a.m., that is 5:49 a.m. Most of the times we find these the nocturnal hypoglycemias which require hospitalization. And the neuroendocrine responses to hypoglycemia, and glycemic threshold for their activation you can see in this bar diagram on the left hand side, you can see very typically on the y-axis you see the blood glucose which is given in milligrams per deciliter starting from 30 to 90, and on the bold one is the normal setting, whereas the dotted one you find the dotted one is the recurrent hypoglycemia. The first one to start is the decreased insulin secretion. This response is not operative in diabetes because of insulin deficiency. And the second thing is it still goes down. The glucagon and the adrenaline and the growth hormone and the cortisol, which are called the counter regulatory hormones, are otherwise known as the stress hormones. The counter regulation starts, and a little bit of recovery tries to make out in a normal setting, and not in this particular the recurrent hypoglycemias. You lose that counter regulatory hormone surge, that is the glucagon response is impaired in diabetes, and it continues and it goes to the symptomatic hypoglycemia, either the autonomic or the neuroglycopenic symptoms, which leads to the cognitive dysfunction. It leads to severe hypoglycemia. I mind you once again, severe hypoglycemia may cause sudden cardiovascular deaths and deaths in other form also. They may lead to sudden cardiac deaths and even sudden deaths. So keep it in mind, the take home message is never let your patients get into severe hypoglycemia, that is level 3 hypoglycemia. And recurrent hypoglycemia shifts the glycemic threshold for these responses to lower the plasma glucose concentrations. And this is a nice picture which is depicting the counter regulation and hypoglycemia. See, if it is an acute hypoglycemia, we divide into like acute hypoglycemia and the prolonged hypoglycemia. And the acute hypoglycemia on the left hand side top, you can see the liver, the changes we see is glycogenolysis and the gluconeogenesis, and the glucagon is increased, and in the both it is in the glycogenolysis it is increased and the gluconeogenesis is increased, and adrenaline also is increased and vice versa, and the glucagon increases the glycogenolysis and the glucagon increases the gluconeogenesis, whereas the adrenaline also, these are all the stress hormones in the acute event. These two out of 6, these two come into play, that is they increase the glycogenolysis and gluconeogenesis. And coming to the prolonged hypoglycemia, the liver, at the level of liver, at the level of muscle and at the level of fat, if we divide, if we can see these parameters, glucagon, adrenaline and cortisol and growth hormone, so the glucagon increases the glycogenolysis and gluconeogenesis. In the prolonged phase of this thing, it has action on at the level of liver only, whereas adrenaline has got it has got effect on the various levels, that is at the level of liver, at the level of muscle and the level of fat, and the adrenaline increases the glyconeogenesis and the glycogenolysis and the gluconeogenesis, and the glycogenolysis and glycolysis and the proteolysis and the lipolysis, and it is decreases the glucose utilization, whereas the cortisol, it is similar to that of adrenaline, which increases the glycogenolysis and gluconeogenesis and glucogenolysis and the glycolysis and the proteolysis and then the lipolysis, and it decreases the glucose utilization, and so also the growth hormone, that increases the glycogenolysis and the gluconeogenesis, and it increases the lipolysis and it decreases the glucose utilization. On the other hand, from the muscle, the lactate and the amino acids, they come into action, and from fat the glycerol comes into action, which increases the gluconeogenesis. This is the main metabolic effects of counter regulatory hormones during the acute and prolonged hypoglycemia. Risk factors for hypoglycemia. So the young children with type 1 diabetes, they are at more risk of developing hypoglycemia, In contrary, the elderly also are the risk of developing hypoglycemia, and again early pregnancy, and the cardiac failure, the renal impairment, or the liver insufficiency, and on the other hand side, the overnight fast, and the exercise, and the alcohol ingestion, and the intensive glycemic therapy, that is especially when the patient is on sulfonylurea and insulin, and it depends on the duration of diabetes also. This becomes a big risk factor, duration of diabetes, because the responses and reflexes are blunted. You find the hypoglycemia unawareness. This is an autonomic deformity which we generally find in the elderly diabetics who will have the hypoglycemia unawareness. And the history of severe hypoglycemia, impaired awareness of hypoglycemia, and the glycemic variability at the center is the responsible factor which determines all the risk factors for hypoglycemia. So glycemic variability is very important. It is nothing but the ups and downs. The glycemic variability is nothing but the glycemic levels which they just go up and low, up and low, up and low in a given day or in the given days. Actually, this is glycemic variability. And in this connection, I would like to remind my friends that there is a term called blood pressure variability also, which is very important. So I have to keep in these two conditions in view, this particular back of your mind, the glycemic variability and the blood pressure variability. So glycemic variability, what does it mean? So first we'll come to within day variability, that is in a given day. What is glycemic variability? That is nothing but the swings of the hypoglycemia followed by the hyperglycemia. Now you can see, see from here it starts the blood glucose given in millimoles per liter. Usually we see on the right hand side you can find it like we generally use this particular milligrams per deciliter. So see it swings from this particular 144 milligrams of deciliter to it goes as low as it goes to less than the like 20 or 25 here, and there is up and down in the curve starting from here and there to see it's a bizarre curve. So like it goes like so madly. That is getting into hypoglycemia and getting on to hyperglycemia. That is called glycemic variability. That is in a given day. That is you can see the patient A with low glycemic variability and patient B with high glycemic variability, and this is the one the gray color. The gray color is with low glycemic variability. You can see that, and the black one is with like high glycemic variability, where you find the bizarre curves like going up and down like the mood swings. It is getting into hypoglycemia followed by hyperglycemia, again hypoglycemia, again hyperglycemia. So this is called glycemic variability, and this is divided into the low glycemic variability and the moderate glycemic variability and high glycemic variability. And low glycemic variability is always advisable and suggestible for a nice glycemic control. So high glycemic variability is associated with the swings of hypoglycemia followed by hyperglycemia, like from 40 milligram per deciliter to 400 milligram per deciliter. So very inconsistent blood glucose levels, leading to the increased incidences of hypoglycemia and the hyperglycemia. Maybe that leads to the acute complications of diabetes and the chronic complications of diabetes, that is the microvascular and the macrovascular complications are attenuated say accentuated, sorry. So by this particular the high glycemic variability. And you can see a bizarre picture there with different colors. That is nothing but the day by day variability of the glycemic variability. So what does it mean? Actually, you can see here the one day, this the 2nd of August, 3rd of August, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th of August. See, it is a time taken for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days in a week. So you have so much of glycemic variability, so that see the one graph is interlinked with the other, so that it gives a confusing scenario, so that it gives you a clear picture that this patient has got the high glycemic variability in a given week, that is 7 days duration. So high glycemic variability is always a dangerous sign. See to that, because I always tell in my speaker programs about HbA1c. HbA1c is a very good tool that measures the blood glucose for the last 3 months, and it gives the mean average plasma glucose, but it doesn't give any clue about the glycemic variability. And the second minus point pitfall with HbA1c is it never gives a clue about the hypoglycemia actually. So then, how to measure this glycemic variability? There are certain tools to measure the glycemic variability. Like the one is the amplitude. What you see here is in the bidirectional arrow is the amplitude. So amplitude of this the variations in the graph is the concept of using amplitude as a measure of glycemic variability. So we take this amplitude as the measure of glycemic variability to measure the level of glycemic variability. Here you can clearly see that the swings are up and downs, up and downs, up and downs. That's what it's called high glycemic variability. Example, like the glycemic variability indices based on amplitude. This is dependent on two factors, that is standard deviation, that is SD, and the coefficient of variation, that is CV. So the standard deviation, what it describes is the variation around mean blood glucose, and the intraday and the interday. That's what I said. Interday, that is in a given 24-hour period, and intraday, that is in a given 7-day period. That gives the description is given by this standard deviation. And the coefficient of variation, it describes the magnitude of variability relative to mean blood glucose. And the second thing that this is going to measure, that will help us in measuring the glycemic variability. First is amplitude, and the second is time. You can see that the time spent outside the target, that is time out of the range, time spent in hypoglycemia or hyperglycemia, as a measure of glycemic variability. That is where time in range is so important, that anything that is above the time range or below the time range. Below the time range is always hypoglycemia. Above the time range, it is hyperglycemia. You can see the up and down peaks as seen depicted in the earlier cartoon, and you can see in the down, see the time above, the time within, and the time below the target range, that is 70 to 180 milligram per deciliter, and within is all the time a normoglycemia, and below with red it is indicated as danger, that is hypoglycemia, and above is yellow, that is the hyperglycemia. So it should be within the time range, that is TIR, that is which is given in the dotted green, that is like a safe zone. So these are the two methods like how we can measure the glycemic variability. That is, one is amplitude and the second is time. So the international consensus for continuous glucose monitoring interpretation, CGM interpretation. Now you can see this. You can see each in these bar diagrams. You find 4 bar diagrams actually. The first one is the type 1 diabetes and the type 2 diabetes, and the second bar represents older and high risk T1DM and T2DM, and the third one represents the pregnancy and type 1 diabetes, and the last one pregnancy, GDM and type 2 diabetes. You find like each incremental 5% increase in the time in range is associated with clinically significant benefits for type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes. And not only that, the pregnancy with the type 1 and the pregnancy GDM with the type 2 diabetes, and they are benefited by this particular the time in range. That is, TIR is very important. You should not go above that and below that. So you can clearly see the safest zone. The red zone is always like the orange is zone. In each of this particular is hypoglycemia, whereas the green zone is the safest zone where the patient is in normoglycemia. The yellow zone is above the range, that is hyperglycemia, and a severe hypoglycemia on top of it is the last one is the severe hypoglycemia. And you can clearly go through this the blood sugar levels which are given at the each bar diagram. So we'll move on to the next slide. Let's talk about hypoglycemic. The second topic is the hypoglycemia and the glycemic variability, the association. Like you can here see the glycemic variability and risk of non-severe hypoglycemia, and here you can see this the HbA1c from it's ranging from more than 8.5 around or more than 8.5%, and in the middle you can see that you find 7.5 to 8.5%, and on the last you find the less than 7.5%, and on the other side you find the glycemic variability, and you can see from these bar diagrams actually. And as the HbA1c is going up, you have very low incidence of hypoglycemias, because it is very obvious when the patient is totally uncontrolled, whether it is type 1 DM or the type 2 DM or the pregnancy or the GDM or PGDM, whatever it may be, or the T1 DM complicating pregnancy or T2 DM complicating pregnancy, whatever it may be, when the A1C is so high, you expect a zero hypoglycemia, and as the A1C moves to the target, and you find more incidences of hypoglycemia, because intensive control is always associated with the more incidence of hypoglycemia. That's what it depicts. You can very clearly go through this, and the odds ratio for the variability is 1.08 and 95% of confidence interval, and the p-value is 0.0001, that is very statistically significant. And now coming to the glycemic variability and risk of hypoglycemia, actually this is a post-hoc analysis of switch trials actually. On the left hand side you find this the hypoglycemia seen in type 1 diabetes. On the right hand side you find the type 2 diabetes and the hypoglycemia, and the glycemic variability is like I said, it is divided into low, medium and high glycemic variability. The light blue one is low day-to-day variability, and the medium is, that is dark navy blue, that is medium day-to-day variability, and the grey color is high day-to-day glycemic variability. So you can clearly see here the overall and the nocturnal and the severe in T1DM, as well as on the right hand side the T2DM, the overall and the nocturnal and the severe, which are all are statistically very significant. You find that the p-value is less than 0.0001, that is statistically it is very significant. So now coming to the last part of the today's topic, the hypoglycemia and the glycemic variability, the implications. And the hypoglycemia and the increased risk of mortality. That's what I said. Severe hypoglycemia, you have to keep it in mind all the time that it is increased, that it is related to the increased risk of mortality. See, until 2012, if I remember exactly, until 2012, ADA also used to say always, like we have a common saying in our medicine, like childhood fevers are much welcome, because the baby develops antibodies, and then the antigen antibody complexes that leads to the increased immune response. So childhood fevers or cold cough, they are very much welcome. And likewise in diabetes, there was a saying, hypoglycemia is also much welcome. Before 2012, this is scenario I am talking about, before 2012, please. So then, going through the retrospective studies of the hypoglycemias, 2012, the American Diabetes Association in its recommendations, the standards of the medical care in diabetes has recommended that hypoglycemia is an unwanted situation, unwanted scenario in diabetes. Let it be type 1 diabetes, or let it be type 2 diabetes, or let it be pregnancy related diabetes, GDM or pre-GDM, whatever it may be. The hypoglycemia is never welcome. Hypoglycemia, you should see to that the hypoglycemias are much prevented, so that the risk of mortality, the increased risk of mortality goes down, and the disabilities also they go down along with that, because hypoglycemias are not only associated with coma, they are associated with seizures, they are associated with dysarthria, they are associated with incidences of paralysis, they are associated with the incidence of cardiovascular events like heart attack and strokes, and finally leading to death. So this is there are two trials given, that is one ACCORD and the ADVANCE, the most popular trials. The left hand side is ACCORD, the mortality rate increased with occurrence of severe hypoglycemia events. You can clearly see no previous events is this light blue one is no previous events. At least one previous event is the dark blue. That is so you can clearly see here it is 1.3 and 2.8, the hypoglycemia events requiring any assistance, medical or non-medical. And it is the left hand side, you find again the left hand, the ACCORD left hand diagram is the intensive treatment, as well as the right hand side ACCORD is the standard treatment, that is conventional and intensive treatment. Again, when we come to this advanced trial, the impact of severe hypoglycemia and outcomes, you can very clearly see that the severe hypoglycemia has got the very bad outcomes, and severe hypoglycemia was strongly associated with increased risk of the range of adverse clinical outcomes. So now it's an important slide. The hypoglycemia, the relation, especially with regards to the cardiovascular risk and the mortality. So hypoglycemia, first of all, it leads to sympathoadrenal activation, and in turn which leads to the one is the increased QTC prolongation, that is the QTC in the interval in the ECG is very much prolonged. The hypoglycemia is one factor that increases this particular QTC prolongation on the ECG, and on the other side it causes the hypokalemia. And in this connection, you have to bear it in mind, the increased QTC interval is related to sudden cardiac deaths, and QTC prolongation is seen not only in hypoglycemia, you see it in the current COVID scenario. Per se, COVID itself causes this particular increased QTC prolongation. Maybe the COVID-19 virus itself causes, and the drugs that was initially they were used like the initial ICMR guidelines, they were that is to start the hydroxychloroquine, that is HQS, and the azithromycin, the drug induced prolongation of the QTC interval, that is that both the drugs are used simultaneously for COVID-19. So that is that reflects badly on the QTC interval prolongation and may lead to sudden cardiac deaths. And the one molecule in our diabetic portfolio you have to remember, because though this is not related to the topic, since the topic of QTC has come, the prolongation of QTC interval has come, so I have to remind all my dear colleagues that the one molecule, the teneligliptin, the Indian gliptin, this is the DPP4 inhibitor, which is very much associated with the increased the QTC interval, which leads to sudden cardiac arrhythmias and leads to sudden cardiac death. So please avoid the combination of HCQS with this particular the azithromycin, or even for the patient suffering from rheumatoid arthritis also. You take an ECG, baseline ECG, whenever you want to put this hydroxychloroquine, then keep monitoring when the patient is on chronic use of hydroxychloroquine. So also the azithromycin. So also in our portfolio, in our domain, the diabetology, the one drug that is that badly influences the QTC interval is teneligliptin. Please avoid using teneligliptin. So and the hypoglycemia leads to inflammation, and the hypoglycemia leads to abnormalities in coagulation, that is thrombogenesis, and the endothelial dysfunction. These are all the side effects of the hypoglycemia on the heart. So which leads to cardiac arrhythmias, usually the ventricular arrhythmias, either the ventricular tachycardia or the ventricular fibrillation. Which in turn leads to the myocardial ischemia, and they lead to the sudden cardiac death. And the cardiac autonomic neuropathy also leads to cardiac arrhythmias, so called the ventricular arrhythmias, either the VT or VF, leading to sudden death. These are all the mechanisms by which hypoglycemia may increase the cardiovascular risk and mortality. So now coming to the glycemic variability and its implications, and these are the pre-specified analysis of the DEVOTE trial actually. So again I said the low glycemic variability given in the bar diagram as black, and the medium is blue, and the high glycemic variability in the this gray color. So this is the left hand side, you find the MACE, that is major adverse cardiovascular events, and then the left hand side you find all cause mortality. You can easily make out that the lowest MACE are with the low glycemic variability, and the highest glycemic variability is associated with highest incidence of MACE, that is major adverse cardiovascular events. And even when you come to the all cause mortality also, low glycemic variability is associated with less all cause mortality, whereas the high glycemic variability is associated with increased all cause mortality. And that shows the increased fasting glycemic variability significantly increases the risk of major adverse cardiovascular events and all cause mortality. And now this is an important slide that depicts the glycemic variability, the oxidative stress, and the risk of complications. So the anti-diabetic therapy in type 2 diabetes mellitus should be aimed at reducing the values of three coordinates. See, three are very important. See, one is fasting plasma glucose, that is very important. Even the postprandial plasma glucose is very important, and at the same time, and the glucose fluctuations and the HbA1c, they are also very important. So you need to counter the fasting hyperglycemia, you have to counter the postprandial hyperglycemia, and you have to counter the glucose fluctuations. So then you have to get back to the A1C to the normalcy. So on the left hand side, you can see the fasting plasma glucose. As it goes down, the risk of complications also they go down. As the fasting plasma rises, you can clearly see the risk of complications also they are increased, and that leads to the glucose fluctuations, that leads to MACE, that is mean amplitude of glycemic excursions, and that leads to the activation of the oxidative stress, and activation of the oxidative stress, again it's a vicious cycle that leads to the increased risk of complications. And finally this leads to the increased the fasting hyperglycemia leads to the postprandial hyperglycemia, which also increases the A1C levels. And if it is decreased, if you can control the postprandial glycemia, if you can prevent this postprandial hyperglycemia, if you can get back the HbA1c to a target of less than 7, your risk of the complications is very much reduced. You can see very clearly depicted in this dotted bar diagram. And finally, what happens is the fasting plasma glucose is increased, and the postprandial plasma glucose is increased. Thereby, it leads to lot of glucose fluctuations, and it leads to the disturbances in the this particular the glycemic variability reflected in the form of disturbed glycemic variability, that leads to from low glycemic variability to medium to high glycemic variability, which leads to the risk of complications. So the contribution of glycemic variability and the fasting plasma glucose and the postprandial glucose to the risk of complications, that leads to the fasting hyperglycemia plus the postprandial hyperglycemia plus the glucose fluctuations. You all are aware that the HbA1c is not totally dependent on only the fasting or the postprandial. It is dependent on both the 24-hour this thing, the fasting or the postprandial or the fed stage or the unfed stage. Everything reflects in the HbA1c. So fasting hyperglycemia plus postprandial hyperglycemia plus glucose fluctuations, they lead to the increased oxidative stress, and that again is a vicious cycle that increases the risk of complications. So the take home message is, you have to control the fasting hyperglycemia, because that is important. That is always, I tell repeatedly, always remember 3 F's. Fix the fasting first. That is F. So if you can fix the fasting first, automatically you can catch up that postprandial hyperglycemia. You can get back get back to normalcy by means of reducing the glucose variability and the glucose fluctuations. If you can reduce that, you can reduce the oxidative stress. You can reduce the risk of the complications also. So anti-diabetic therapy in type 2 diabetes should be aimed at reducing the values of the 3 coordinates what I have mentioned. So ideally, this is the take home message. See, we have come to the end of the session, first session, my session. So the ideally a basal insulin should have a low glycemic variability, a low risk of hypoglycemia, ultra long duration of action, smooth and flat profile. So in my opinion, the insulin degludec is like, it has got all the qualities what I have said. It has got very low glycemic variability, it has got very low risk of hypoglycemia, and the insulin degludec, that is Tresiba, has got ultra long duration of action when compared to the existing all the basal insulins. Let it be the conventional the human basal insulins or the analog basal insulins like insulin detamar, insulin glargine, or the insulin glargine U100 or U300. And degludec has got a ultra long duration of action, and it is smooth and it has got very flat profile. So insulin degludec, the analog, the basal insulin, has got all the qualities what I have mentioned. And in this connection, I would like to mention about we are expecting the icodec. Icodec is an analog, very long acting the basal insulin analog from Novo Nordisk, and that has got the plasma half-life of 196 hours. You will be astonished that it is to be given once in a week. If that comes, that's going to be a big boon for the entire patients, whether the type 1 patients or the type 2 patients or whatever it may be, if it is indicated in pregnancy, because still it is in the phase, clinical trials phase 3, so there is we are still waiting for that insulin icodec. If it comes out, that's going to be a boon for the entire diabetic population and for the doctors or the clinicians who are treating this particular the diabetes. And to conclude, the take home message is, hypoglycemia is often underreported and significantly associated with a range of adverse outcomes, and glycemic variability is a contributor to the risk of having hypoglycemia. and options to decrease the risk of glycemic variability and hypoglycemia should be considered when choosing a therapeutic strategy. So choose this particular the insulins wisely based on your the patient profile, based on the pulse of the patient. You please choose the either the human insulins or the analog insulins, the designer insulins, and do justice to the patients by reducing the glycemic variability, which is very very important. And the second take home message is to reduce the incidence of hypoglycemia and the incidence of hyperglycemia. So thank you so much for patient listening. So bye.